So, I was having a conversation with my dad about simpler times. And I know that when he was saying the words simpler times to me, that it meant something completely different to him, I think, than what it meant to me. Like, what do you experience when you hear people talk about simpler times, or like when you think about simpler times yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a relevant question today, especially with all of our technology and our hashtag busyness, right? And when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking more of simpler times. It conjures like almost like a Stranger Things vibe for me. Like when we were riding our bikes and being archaeologists at 5, that's what I think when I think of simpler times, like just this quiet and exploration period of life.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it pulls up like nostalgia, but like I don't know that nostalgia, because I mean, like just thinking about today, I can open the Publix delivery app and get my groceries delivered to me, or I can tell them I want to go pick them up right now.
Right.
I can turn on with my phone the Roomba to, do my floor for me, right? Like the times haven't necessarily, in my opinion, maybe gotten more complicated or more convoluted. It's just we now have social apps like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter where you just hear a lot more and you see a lot more. So, I mean, everything's a lot more convoluted maybe. What do you think about something like that?
Yeah, I think you being in tech and me being a therapist, I think we've had so many conversations about this in a good way. I think it gets convoluted in how we're spending our time. I don't know how you feel about that. I think we bucket dump on tech and other areas of life. I'll stick to tech, though, since that's kind of what we're doing. But my point being, is it really that we're this busy, or is it we're not using the tools properly? I remain a little unclear on some of these questions, even as a therapist that's hearing that content. So, I kind of view it as it can be both complex and we can make it simple, too. So I think it has a very unique flip side to it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I examine the nostalgia portion of it, like when I think about simple times, I think about not having to worry about, if we were going to war tomorrow or something. Right. Not having to worry about if, like the value of the dollar would drop, for no reason, like just for example or something, I didn't have to worry about if my crypto coin was going to be worth as much tomorrow as it is today, Like,
No.
The problems were just much different, and like everything's been democratized in such a fashion where, they even saw that in the market, the trading market, on the stock market, because when they brought in the Robinhood day trader...
Oh, yeah. We saw what happened real quick.
Right. So when the masses participate, things get different.
Yeah. So if we're kind of breaking it down into piecemeal, do you think perception's part of it too? Because I think about, when we're in our Stranger Things days or age 5 and being doctors and lawyers in our minds and astronauts, right? Do you think we were shielded from the news or less news? Because, I mean, you look back in the 80s and everyone's worried about, their own agenda, whatever that would have been. I feel like our parents must have felt it, but it certainly was not put on us. Do you know what I mean? It's a confusing question to some degree.
Well, I think about what I was worried about as a kid. I was worried about kid stuff.
Right.
I was worried about what a kid was doing. Right. What I'm going to wear tomorrow, where I'm going to baseball tomorrow, out, going to school, got a test tomorrow. It just depends on what you're worried about. It wasn't more so that I wasn't worried about those things, less so that I cared about them. They weren't at the top of the stack, and like today now you can pick 15 causes to be at the top of your stack, but
course.
are you going to make headway on all of them?
No. Can you? Superhero?
I don't know. Yeah, I can do a lot, but I mean, 15, 9. Like a hard 9.
I think I could devote full capacity to 2, right? Right? I think that's, I just wonder how much we were shielded from, too, in retrospect, because I grew up with my grandparents, but they seemed to complain, too, that things were simpler at some points, too. So it seems to be kind of a universal generational complaint.
Well, I mean, even take it down to, let's say your debit card, for instance, right? Like now you don't even need it. You can just bring your phone or tap to pay with your watch, and you can do it right at the ATM. Having your card is useless. Unless the bank won't let you withdraw funds out of the card, but the tech makes things, so you don't have to remember one more thing, it's one less thing to deal with, one less thing to remember, which is sort of been, tech wasn't promised to be the answer to everything, but I mean, it's come a long way to show itself as being a pretty formidable thing to solve a lot of heartaches that are just day to day, like, the monogamy of day to day,
Mm-hmm. As a therapist, I'm most interested in, especially when we collaborated on this, the tech end. I've consulted with you so many times trying to help my clients that have, I'll use the term addiction loosely, but tendency to really be sucked into Facebook and Instagram and the likes. Do you think that's creating complexity in when it's used improperly, I guess? Because we're looking at how we get back to simpler. It seems like that might, if misused, could overcomplicate. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out, too. I don't have a perfect answer on this one.
I'd like to, let's just, I want to start with one, right? Like, what are you considering sucked in, right?
That's a good
question. Because if I
question.
hand a kid a tablet and it has Instagram on it and they like photos of pretty people, they're going to love it, right? And when they don't have anything to do, they're going to say, I like looking at these photos, and they'll go look at the photos, right? Like, when left to your own devices to do whatever you're going to do, many people are choosing their phone and choosing Instagram or Facebook or, Twitter or wherever they hang out. Like people scoff at the notion of like a VR hangout, but you're already doing it in a way, like
Right.
You get onto Facebook, you tell your friends what you're doing, your aunt or your uncle or your mom comments or whatever, and
Absolutely. I just find it incredibly fascinating how much it's talked about in therapy. And it seems, to have escalated over the last few years. And I think the pandemic created a lot of boredom. And I have a lot of parents, too, saying now my kids are addicted to whatever device, insert whatever product. So I certainly see both the pitfalls and the favors of online and the tools with like social movements and stuff. I'm not sure I always hear that that's what people are using it for, but I do think that is its most powerful format. What would you say?
I mean,
as a tech person,
like the device itself, it offers a lot of power.
It does.
It offers the power to entertain your kid for a whole entire hour, right, while you cook dinner. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was young, and I'm playing Nintendo, like I've been at Mario 1 for 2 hours straight on a Saturday, and my mom come in and she's like, "Get out of my house. I don't like seeing you here." And I would go play basketball with my friends or whatever I was going to do that day, but like the kids don't all go outside and commune like they used to in my neighborhood, at least where I'm at now. Where I grew up, all the kids were outside and playing with each other and doing things.
Yeah, they were. And it was, I mean, I grew up in a town of elderly people, right?
In Florida?
In Florida.
Yeah,
in
no
Florida.
say.
Yeah, in Cape Coral, and this was a town. My parents moved from the Mid-Atlantic, and I think they were a little bit shocked at the rural state of affairs there. But for me, it just allowed for so much creativity, is my point, and I love that part of my childhood where I think I've talked to you about it. I feel like we lose that simplicity. I wish I had that kind of mindset, and not that I can't, but my point is that ability to go outside and go exploring and think I'm an architect or an archaeologist for the day. I mean, that feeling of simplicity in that is, again, what conjures in my mind of freedom. It's a freedom. It's simple. The word,
Right.
I think, simple implies not complicated and convoluted, right?
Well, somebody's vision of freedom is
Right.
camping in
Very
the woods,
different.
right? With fishing next to a river, and another person's vision of freedom is making TikToks that thousands of people like and comment
And love.
on, right? Like, whatever the version of freedom you seek looks like, I mean,
Yeah. So, do you think tech could potentially make things simpler for people if they allowed it to, versus just using it for I'm not suggesting everyone does, but the gratification piece of just likes. I'm trying to move beyond that part and really figure out what would motivate like my own clients, or in terms of how they can spend that time usefully and not put down the phone even, right? Does that make sense? Like, because the guided meditation suggestions, sometimes Instagram wins.
well, when you wrote in school the little note to a person, you're like, hey, do you like me? Check a box.
Yeah, yes,
You
no,
know what I'm saying?
maybe.
People are
Oh,
doing this
maybe.
on their Facebook feed, right? You'll see women's underpants in these photos, right? And they'll say things like, I'm not doing it for the attention, and maybe they aren't, right? Which is very feasible and possible. But, it is popular, and the group that they attract is the group that they attract, right? Like, but be careful whom you court and bring towards you,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
So,
And I think it was a great tool, again, when used right. Like, look at the pandemic. My whole industry went online, right? Out of nowhere. Without tech, I don't think I'd be employed. Just saying. So, again, it's a very powerful tool and has both favors and some suck-ins,
well,
pitfalls.
that's the thing, is like, the question I've been asking myself is, so if simpler times is just a construct, it's what I make, right? Like, the simpler
Right.
time is what I'm building. I'm, how optimized is my time for my day, Like, how do you feel, when you're optimizing for your day, right? Like, is there things you like to do or try or to get yourself ready to go,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, before I am a firm believer as a therapist, and this is not a new statement. I will tell this to my clients is, I should not be ever telling someone to do something I won't do myself. Right? Like, that seems peculiar. So my favorite thing is meditation. That's what gets me going in terms of getting my mind clear to be present for those around me and kind of numbing out that noise. And I think that is a very simple form when we speak of simpler, because I can't think of anything as tried and true as meditation,
Right.
scientifically too. But it works for me in terms of setting up my day with an intention and can create some simplicity. Sometimes I might need 2 meditations, though, right? Depending on what the day's looking like. But the ownership then becomes on me to not be 90 steps ahead on when I only need to be 1.
Right. Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if that sentence made sense.
No, the want to be like maybe 4 chess moves ahead.
Correct.
But like you're still currently doing this chess move.
Absolutely.
You know?
I do it myself,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
a therapist. I'm well, but I have to do this, and that, and I forgot to do that thing, and that's where that meditation comes in, because if I let my brain should not be left alone.
Right. Yeah. It's about the unwind, right? The you know, like pent up angst and stuff like that. You know, things that aren't simple to deal with, right? Things that aren't simple. You know, I think about the kids right now. The kids already have lived through a lot. You know, just the kids now.
Which will
you
be
know?
a different episode, but
Correct.
my goodness.
So when I look
Yes.
at them and their little bits of angst in their little worlds, and you know, and I'm trying to sort it out just as much as they are. Like when my nephews look at me, or you know, my daughter looks at me and is like, you know, hey, how do I do this? Or you know, really just showing them the way, right? Like that's all adults mostly tried to do, you know. And when I think back to my childhood in the simple times, it was just adults really telling me what to focus on, and
Yes.
sort of saying great job when you came back and you did a good job doing it. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think it's important that the listeners know we both had a very similar style background of being told what to do. We
Oh, yeah.
didn't fall in. I'm sure you had friends, and
Oh.
I did that. Had the parents that were not present all the time, and we went to their houses. I'm sure. At least I did.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you, but my point is, I think that context is important because, you know, living with your grandparents in my case was like living in the 1950s, so very different world. And then, you know, you have that same kind of background where we both kind of learn to sort of function in direction, I think does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, like, I was just, like, you sort of nailed it when, like, my parents did tell me what to do, and then when I was doing it, nobody had a problem.
Right.
Right?
You did
see
the
what I mean?
thing. You did
Right,
the thing.
right.
We talked about
Until I
that.
was like, hey, what if I was in charge of what I was doing? Right? And then you get the pushback, right? Like, you know, it's not an uncommon story.
No. So I mean, I think that really begs the question. You know, I'm very blessed to work between 2 states. You know, between Florida and Vermont, and you know, equally stressed in different areas. But so many clients right now are wanting that kind of simpler, rolled back lifestyle and asking that advice. And I do think technology, I am using technology, right? I use my phone to pull up that meditation.
Yeah.
My point is, you know, I think I'm trying together with a community of people figure out what that new definition is. Because I think our definition is working. It's a good working definition and transferable. But how do we transfer that to a different perspective of how we all get a little bit simpler? Like, where is that ownership? I don't know. It's a hard question.
It is. Yeah, I started doing some of that. Like, it's like a combination of, like, yoga and meditation and stretching, right? Just all together. And it's not like I don't have some app telling me what to do or look up a YouTube video. I just sort of
Do your thing.
roll out a yoga
I like
mat,
it.
and I got one of those little back rollers, and I just sort of go to work, you know. And, like it really comes down to like unwinding and like and not necessarily finding shortcuts, but working smarter, right? Like finding things that cut from A to B for you and just sort of lighten the load, right? Like,
Right.
look, laundry is a load that isn't ever going to get lightened. You own the amount of clothes you own. So, you're probably going to have to look elsewhere unless you're sorting through your clothes piles, right? But, like, the things that do make, like, day-to-day easier, like you called back, you said doing meditation, right? I might do that once every other day or so now, in my start doing it. And, like, are there any other things that you can think of that, outside of meditation that sort of help make the flow of day-to-day go a little easier for you? Like, do you have any, like one or two little tips or tricks that, you think you can?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I think people respond very well to research versus not throwing any shade on untested psychology things. But my point being, I'll really try to use evidence approaches, and that seems to help people if they know it's proven. But I talk a lot, just one simple one that can make a dramatic difference in the day is not eating at your desk for lunch. And I was a frequent flyer of doing that. And that survey, reading some literature on how harmful that was the very thing that, shifted that for me. And I could see the increase in productivity, right? Like, I was not angry that I'm slaving away at a company and my lunch is being robbed like I'm a prisoner. I wasn't a prisoner. I just chose not to get up and go take my lunch because I was afraid I wouldn't look busy. That's
Right.
the truth. And owning that is hard. Like, I want to look busy like everyone else that's sitting here eating lunch that's not busy at all. They're playing words with friends. So instead of worrying about it, I would just go to my car and eat my lunch and watch a YouTube video I liked. And that was the simplest thing that I did that made my day like at least 70% better.
Breaking away.
Breaking
right?
away and not feeling guilty about it. I think people feel so guilty making that space or making a request. And like in terms of perception of others.
That's very interesting. People feel guilty. So
They do. They
am
feel
I
guilty
like
taking care of themselves?
So, if I'm understanding what I'm hearing, maybe what I'm hearing is people are organizing and doing their best to organize themselves and feel guilty about the way that they're organizing things or where things are landing or where they're putting them.
Absolutely, yeah.
I see. Yeah, I do that all, like, that's...
I think we all do it.
Yeah.
We all do it.
There's at least 5 things that need to be done, 3 things I want to get done, and, amongst
But, I mean, you
others.
juggle far more than I do, right? I think we know that. Like,
I wouldn't say that. I mean, maybe. Like,
but, I mean, you're a person that can really multitask well. And my suspicion would be, and I could be wrong, I mean, I know you personally, but I don't get to shadow you, you don't bring a friend to work. But, with all the different businesses and such, what do you use to not forget things? I mean, I'm always impressed by your multitasking. So what would you give to someone? Because I have so many clients like you that can do 80 things at once, right?
right.
When they need decompression, they don't know what to go to either. So maybe you're the right person to be asking.
I don't know about decompression. I mean, I can answer the how to, a lot of what I do it comes down to calendaring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't use 4 of them. I use 1. I use 1 calendar. Just like, look, if you're using your job's calendar, set it to private. It's fine, like, just remember to be at the thing, like that's the important part, right? So like, I get organized behind a calendar that's in my phone and on my computer, because I need multiple viewports of, like, the way I work is really fluid, part of my work is sitting down and figuring out a very difficult problem. Just talking through it and maybe sketchboarding it or something. And part of it is just doing it on, on the laptop or on my phone. But, the important thing is like the consolidation between the two. So like my calendar consolidates, some of the operational tools that we use consolidate to my laptop and my phone. So I can work through whichever screen I'm looking at, right? And in the most efficient manner. So when one of the people I work with looks at me and says, "Hey, Ira, I really need you to get this done," I can just sort of open a device and start working on it, most likely. That's not every scenario, but more, right? And the more I can put that way, the better, right?
Yeah.
So, that's just sort of the way I try to think about it. And I think it helps because when I unblock other people and I move things out of their way, and when they move things out of my way for me, we all go a lot farther.
Merge.
We all go a lot farther because we're moving stuff out of each other's way, right?
I really want to capture this part because this is so important for me to hear. I think all these things are so transferable to the general public, right? And this is what I'm hearing all day, and you've got a little bit of a solution in it, if not a moderate one.
I mean, it's not a prescription by any means.
Not a prescription, but it's a start.
Right.
It's a start where I think many people feel there is no start.
Well, make your day, right? Like if you haven't thought about what you're going to do with your day to day, you should be the first person thinking about that. And
when you wake up.
And if it's
or the
5
night before.
inputs from somebody else, and you're not happy about it starting off that way, then
I agree.
Like, where is your input in your day? Like we all measure each other by the course of a day, unfortunately, and if that's the way it's going to be, then I try to be very picky about how my day is going to go, and what's going to be in it, and where I'm going to be, and who I'm going to see, and and like not any sort of snooty or snide way of doing it. It's just there's a lot of things to get done. There's stuff for work, stuff for the family. Things that I just personally want to accomplish, and, we're all trying to fit it all in, right?
Yeah, and I think people, I don't know if you view it this way with some of your friendships, it almost feels like people feel like they have to be busy. And that's what I hear my clients, I hear it all the time, this odd dichotomy of, I love my relaxed lifestyle. However, I got to be doing A through Z, like in this frantic way. And it's like, I don't think both merge well, right? You've got to let up one layer there. So it's interesting to me post-pandemic, or as we kind of move into the second chapter, after, defining busy too is important to define simple, because it seems to me people feel a lot of pressure to be everywhere.
Correct.
All the time.
Yeah. I mean,
it's my observation.
It is. It's very much like that. When times were simpler, when everything was just told to me and I knew how to just knock it down, right? But you have to set them up to knock them down. You have to put work under the thing that you want to get what you want. And just to call back a little bit to when you said people feel guilty tearing themselves away from a desk because they don't look busy, they don't look like they're working as hard as the next person at lunch or something, which that's a fair assessment. But I mean, I wonder how hard on himself, any brilliant person is for like sleeping in, right? Like, oh, I slept until 10, right? Like, well,
I would say 100% of my caseload, the type A.
What
right?
I'm saying is that like, like to feel guilty about taking a break and unwinding is, just such a false expectation, right? Like your business does not expect that of you. I want you to know that. Like, your boss isn't looking at you going,
on Saturday,
never take a break.
Yeah.
Like, come to me a jittery wreck. Like when I see you,
pretty please.
if you're not a jittery wreck, I don't even want to see in the morning. You know what I'm saying?
I want that
Like,
on a company mission statement.
yeah, but come be a jittery wreck.
Please come to me as a jittery wreck. Only in that state.
Right. Like, and when you want food, don't get the food, get the coffee. You know you want the coffee, not the food.
Exactly.
Right, jittery wreck.
I just wonder what has led us to that, right? That I must be busy, I must be looking busy, I must be doing all of these things in order to feel part of something. It almost feels like I'm missing something, that FOMO, whatever it is. I particularly don't feel that, but I hear it and I can relate to it in old industries like we're talking about in corporate America, where that desk situation was very real at the time for me. But I think where it results in is an assessment of self, of where can I cut stuff back? And that people get scared when you ask that question, oddly.
Right.
Like, what can we take off your plate? It's like,
Right.
what do you
like,
mean?
Yeah. Like as if, hey, am I not doing enough? Should I do more? And it's like, no, seriously, you look like I could really just take one thing off your plate.
Right,
like if
right.
you don't
If
mind.
I could write
I'm like
prescriptions, it would
not
be like,
busy.
take a break.
Yeah, I'm like not busy today, and if you don't mind, just go ahead and give me give me a couple things. No worries.
Yeah. So it's a busy thing too, I think.
I mean, part of it is like
Perception of busy.
I think we all like to have a sense of accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
And like it's
And
hard.
doing enough.
Correct. It's hard to move forward and like do things without trying to achieve feeling that sense of accomplishment, right? And sometimes I experience the thing I call the pylon of unproductive, where I am just legitimately unproductive for a good long while, and
Yeah.
I want to be. And like sometimes, you just aren't, and you can't, and you won't, and it's about just sort of keeping the plane level and flying through that, and like, when somebody does say, hey, can I take something off your plate? You say yes. Like, don't
Yeah.
turn down things you want. Like, if so,
Yeah, asking for help, again, another episode in itself, like teaching people just to say, hey, do you mind picking up the dog for me, is like terrifying to them. I'm putting them at a 7 out of 10 being worse, anxiety, and you're like, but it's just an ask. But it's so conditioned that it's bad to ask for help, I think. I could be wrong, but it seems like people struggle with it, and I do myself. I've always functioned wrongly so, but I'll be earnest about myself. I mean, I've worked with teams of people, and anytime, sometimes if offered help, if it wasn't done the way or efficiently, I just did it myself because it was quicker. So it does get complicated depending on who your source of help is, right?
Yeah.
And I get that. But I agree with you on the openness to try new things. Like that desk
Well, I'm glad
thing.
you pointed it out, because like under the pylon of unproductive, you often experience
get
that,
it
right?
too.
Like, I want this
I
done,
do.
and nobody else is going to do it right but me, right? So it's on my plate and only mine, and therefore is weighing me down, right? And sometimes it's hard to get up and out from underneath of those types of things. Like, I don't have any foolproof way of getting it up and out of from under, unproductive, but eventually it just sort of sorts its way out. Right?
It does. It does. It happened to me a few times during the pandemic. And I think I told you the story of just being able to be human and how freeing that was. I was waiting on something medically and I missed an appointment. I have never in my whole career missed. It was a first. Mm. And I started to beat myself up about it. And I was like, you know what? I can utilize this as a tool. Like, I'm human too.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have 10 years ago thought to do that. It would just be an overly 20-minute apology about. Do you know what I mean? Where I was just like, I'm human.
What I find
made
fascinating
a mistake.
about that is that, okay, so in my personal field, right? Like
Right.
when I'm like coming up in the tech industry, like as I'm looking for answers to these problems, I'm like, I'm not the first. I'm not the first person to experience this, right?
Sure.
Like it has this error. Just paste it in the Google machine and get the answer out. And so when you're talking about it, when you're talking about missing an appointment, like you're not the first, right? Like, and
No.
I look at things a lot more that way because of just the way I looked at work, as a young guy in tech. Like, I'm not the first person to have this problem. I'm not the first person to miss a flight or miss an appointment or, somebody
Forget
will deal
something.
with it. I call them. I take the first step, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really. I think it goes a lot of places, and it just shows how complex I think the human brain is. Everyone takes things in 80 different directions, and that fascinates me in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot about, like I said, organization, working smarter. If you have 3 places to look for your calendar, like no longer on the wall like they used to be, but now in your phone and on your work computer, maybe on your laptop at home or whatever devices you use.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think helping, that's certainly one of the reasons I think helping people learn how to use the technology in a way that benefits them instead of complaining how it's distracting them, right?
Right.
Like, I think that is a useful point. It can be utilized the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that. So what else do we think on simpler times and how we get there?
I'm not sure it's a place.
Right. Like the good place.
A lot you can hear out there about what everybody wants, right?
Right.
Like, and it's loud.
All day.
It's very loud, and like a lot of it though, I feel like is people just saying what they don't. Like, I don't want this. I don't want that. And like, I can tell you as a person who, and I'm my daughter, all she ever wants to do is like help her sister, help this kid, help that kid, help do this, help do that, right? This is a lot like me. I just want to help, but like,
Yeah.
it feels like a lot of times I hear about what people don't want. I don't want this. I don't want that. And okay, check. But like,
What
now I
do
have this
you
big
want?
pile of don't want, and like I'm still not exceeding any expectations because, right? You're not really sure what to deliver and how. And if you I feel like, especially me personally, I feel like learning that professionally, learning how to talk with intention, learning how to put out what I feel like is gonna go this way, or why we should go that way, or something like that. And it's okay to tackle it or knock it down or whatever, right? But the point is that like we want to go that direction, right? We want to get there, and like getting bogged down in the things that you don't want and the small piddly fights isn't going to make progress on the direction or for the thing that you're trying to accomplish, in the long run.
I agree. And I don't think there's a sitcom ABC answer to it either. But I know for myself, and even in our own household, trying to create some space that's just present, right? Like that is, I like that you mention intentions, because I always, my clients, if they listen, are going to crack up, because I always tell them never to set a goal, set an intention. My point being, though, goals I find unobtainable half the time, not because of the goal, because the goal is outrageously like, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. And you're like, that's probably not a great goal. But an intention, I'd like to do whatever. I'd like to, have my own business in 6 months.
I'm going to use the restroom while y'all figure this out.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what comes to the top of my mind.
Yeah, you figure that out. But
Right.
just summarize it into an intention, whatever that thing is, and see where it takes you.
Right.
Versus making it a black and white decision. There's some gray in it.
Yeah, that's the scary part, is seeing where it takes you, isn't it? You know,
For people, change is scary.
change is always scary.
I'm scared of change, and I teach change.
So
I'd be lying if I said
change being
otherwise.
scary and wanting change, you know, there's those who would cower in fear of change, and those who would take the change and morph it into what they want, right? And those are literally two complete opposite sides, and wherever you land, you know, I'm like, tomorrow's coming, you know, and when you wake up, how are you going to feel? You know, what are you going to, you know, are you going to set some goals up and knock some things down tomorrow and go to sleep feeling accomplished, right? And like, the truth be told, when I lay my head down on my pillow, everybody else is going to sleep, and it's just me dealing with how I feel.
Yeah, at the end of the day. At the end of the day, that's everyone, even if partner or not, you are left with you. We all are. Yeah, I really like the topic in the sense of it's semi-abstract, but also very obtainable.
Yeah, I mean,
We're all going to have a different definition of simple, but I think people have to conjure that image for themselves, too.
correct. Yeah, we talked
Back to what
about,
you're saying.
you know, doing some meditation, setting some intentions. You know, I talked about a couple of apps like Publix Delivery and things like that. So, like, I guess I will just go into the app of the episode. We were taking a look at Notion. Notion is what we use to collaborate to make this show. It's what I personally use to take the disorganized thoughts in my brain.
I was
and
far better at it than I am.
Organize out
Just
what I'm
pointing that out.
trying to do.
Let you finish.
Right? I'm trying to organize in front of me, and Notion is a cool app because it lets me just like sort of conjure up what I need when I need it. I need a list, I need a heading, I need some text, and I need a new page, and everybody can work on it together. It's been absolutely wonderful for us getting started doing this here, and for me taking care of, as you pointed out, I might be a lot busier than you. I don't think I'm that much busier than you, but I try to keep it in this one spot so I know where it's all going.
Yeah, and I'm really impressed by the product. I'm still learning it, as you know. I've had some fumbling blocks with it, but that was all user error. But I really like those streamline approaches, and I love that you picked that one too, because I'm a left tab kind of girl. I like my left tabs, and it's just succinct. So I've enjoyed playing in it and leaving comments, and I love its ability to highlight what we need depending upon the topic. I think of how many times that could have really come in useful instead of our meetings. I look at some products and I'm like, oh, I wish I had that 5 years ago.
Use OneNote, use Evernote, use Notes, use Apple Notes. Use tasks from Google, whatever you use. Just like
whatever's your thing.
Yeah, if you're going to keep looking at it, is the real thing in your day to day, right? Will you keep looking at this? And, it's something I was able to, because it was kind of fun to unfold out some of my thoughts in front of myself and sort of like make organization out of it and fit it all into something. It felt like accomplishment
process
of my brain. So, yeah.
I like it, and I really like, I like that you really, one thing that I do want to say about you is you are always so helpful, and I am always so stubborn with asking for help, but in the sense of tech, though, it's always amazing to work with you, because I used to be the person at my job that actually thought I knew something about tech. And comparative, I think, to some people, I know a little bit. But when I get to work with you, it's just so incredible. I get to learn so much. And it's nice to see the other end of that side. So I just am really grateful for all the things. I really mean that.
Yeah. Hey, look, we got here and we're doing this.
We're doing
is
this
something
thing,
we
yeah.
wanna do, like, and on that note, you had this episode's community thought?
Yeah. So one thing I know that you and I have really talked about is wanting to get St. Pete involved somehow in this, and our sense of community and our drive for community, and wanting input and feedback of what not so much just what people want to hear, but how we can be helpful to a community. I think there's so many hot topics right now, but in focusing to the root of what brings people together, regardless of political background, culture, all these different barriers, and us being two very different people ourselves on different issues, it's such a great opportunity to bring in others in this, so we're not alone in this journey, just together. So that's kind of how I view community, of us not feeling alone in something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the #1 housing market. In the United States of
Right.
America.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know. I moved here 20 years ago almost.
Yeah, I've been here for 36. So,
Yeah. Yeah, we've both seen a lot of changes.
Yeah,
Again.
Florida's it's definitely, it's not the same place.
It'll be
right?
a new
But
community.
I'm not it's not simpler times per se that are gone though, right? It's
No, different
it's a new
times.
time is here, right?
Yes, different
Yeah.
times. But they're
Yeah.
exciting.
They're very exciting. I'm definitely all about that.
I like it.
So
Well, and I hope people will reach out to us and let us know what they think and what is most important when it comes to community, because that's my big thing. I, kind of model now my life after living in kind of Vermont that's a little more collectivist. I really like how they do things. So, I'd love to see that sense of community here where, if we need help, you can actually knock on your neighbor's door. That would be
Right.
so nice.
So I think the question
that's the
asked-
simpler time
the
thing,
question to
right?
ask ourselves right now is, if I could make a community change today,
Right.
what
would it be?
be, right? Just go ahead, like, write it down and
I
see
love
if we
that
can start
idea.
doing a few of those things, right? One at a time.
Perfect. One at a time. One thing at a time. It always proves true.